Bum, 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 bum. World Cup! It's our final World Cup bonus episode, Joe. What happened to the summer?
It's going away.
I don't know. The land of ice pops and sunscreen and pool parties and World Cup magic. It's starting to fade.
But it's not done yet. We've got the best to come.
Sorry, I always got this fear of summer ending when I was a kid, and it's just carried in for the rest of my life. But it's not over yet, guys. We still got the World Cup final coming up. Stick with us right here. Joe and I are going to tell you who's going to win. Maybe. We're not sure if we know who's going to win yet. Joe probably knows. I have a really good feeling of who's going to win, and it's probably not the odds-on favorite in Vegas. Joe, let's talk about how we got here. Obviously, our final is going to be France versus Croatia. Definitely not a highly predicted final before the World Cup started. You were incredibly accurate with your group stage predictions and into the knockout rounds. I got to give mad props to your accuracy, to those you have kept with us through these World Cup bonus episodes. Let's talk about how France got here first. They beat Belgium 1-0. What are you thinking about France, Joe?
France is one of the most talented teams, if not the most talented team in the entire World Cup. And watch out for World Cups to come because they are one of the youngest teams. So they've got stars upon stars that are going to be here for the next 3 World Cup cycles.
Yeah, Mbappe will probably still be playing in the World Cup when the World Cup comes to the USA. And he's that good and that young.
Not only him, but you've got Pavard on their back line that scored possibly the goal of the World Cup.
Fantastic.
And they've got players upon players. I mean, Giroud is a guy that's on his way out and has not scored a goal, has only had 1 shot on target, has been kind of a blunder up there. But then you got Griezmann, who I wouldn't be surprised if he has his last go-around when it comes to USA.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's 27. I think he'll definitely play in the next World Cup at 31. 35 is kind of pushing it. Not in MLS. But
at that time, he needs to go ahead and come
soccer.
to America and become a U.S. citizen and then join Team USA.
Yeah, but you're hitting the nail on the head. I mean, Pavard is only 22 years old. The star of the tournament, arguably, Mbappe is 19.
Do you have a stat on how N'Golo Kante? Do you know how old he is? Because
now Kante is kind of right in between. He's at 27 as well. I think we'll still see Kante for one more World Cup. But we're definitely going to see Pavard, definitely going to see Mbappe, possibly Griezmann, but they just got tons of young talent. I mean, Umtiti, who scored the winning goal against Belgium, is only 24. So he's got 2 more World Cups in him.
There you go. But I think Kante is the glue that holds the entire team together. And he did this at Leicester City and then moved on to Chelsea. Back-to-back teams that Conte was on won the Premier League. And it was because of his play, of how much he intercepts the ball, how much he breaks up attacking threats on his defensive midfield side, and all over the field he is. How important is a player to have a center defensive midfielder that breaks up plays and starts the attack instantly?
Dude, okay, Conte is a beast. I cannot hit on this enough because I 100% agree with you. This guy is the best box-to-box / defensive midfielder in the World Cup without a doubt. I know that some teams have looked at similar players. I know Keita, who, obviously is an African player that just got transferred to Liverpool, has been hinted at being the next Conte, that box-to-box break up the play role. But Conte does it better than anyone. You're right. He's won, the past 2 Premier League titles before Man City won it this year. And the dude just wins. Why not add a World Cup to it?
Yeah, and you mentioned Man City winning the Premier League this year. And their star player, Kevin De Bruyne, the star of Belgium. And France and Belgium went head-to-head this past game. And what a game it was. And I think France had such a tactical game plan that took Belgium out of their style. And Belgium decided to play Kevin De Bruyne out wide, kind of like they did against Brazil, and it worked very well against Brazil.
Yeah.
But France clearly did their research and watched the game against Brazil and realized to hone down on the left side where De Bruyne was playing and stop him. And if you notice, De Bruyne was not in the game until later into the second half, and he kept drifting more and more as the game went along to the middle of the field, drifting and drifting and drifting. And towards the end of the game, France just honed down on that side where all they could do was play down the right side. And they were just one set minded where they only had one option, and France really played a sound tactical game and took Belgium away from what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I was sad to see Belgium get knocked out of this tournament. France is a fantastic team. You can debate tactical, I guess, morality, if you will, all you want. Because after the game, we got to talk about some drama. There's always a little bit of drama in the press. Belgium, although bowing out in the semifinal, which is very respectable, threw a lot of shade towards France. I know that Eden Hazard came out and said, a star player for Belgium, linked to Real Madrid this summer with Cristiano's departure. He came out and said he would have rather lost than played the style of football that France played. It was very defensive. It was reminiscent of possibly like a Jose Mourinho team. Like how Manchester United can play it sometimes, just bunkered down. Mbappe, one of their star forwards, was back time wasting all the way in the other team's box. Like they really parked the bus, if you will. And Belgium's players threw some shade. What do you think about the tactical approach?
Well, you know what? There's a game of soccer, and it's not illegal in the game. It's not a foul to put as many players behind the midfield line as you want.
Yeah, Russia did it.
It's not. It's a style of play, and it may be boring to some people, but Atletico Madrid does it very well. That's where Griezmann and Giroud played plenty of time there as well.
Yeah.
They do it the best out of anybody. And France kind of takes on that style of play where it's not a boring game when you watch them do it because they know how to counter so well. And they've got Mbappe on one side, Griezmann on the other side, or Matuidi on the other side with the speed just flying at you on those counter attacks. And they create so many chances of their own that the game still opens up in its own way, and I think it's still a beautiful game when you play a bunkering mentality the proper way.
Yeah, and I mean they got tons of great talent on the wing. They got Tolisso. They can bring in Nabil Fekir off the bench. They have a solid defense with Varane and Umtiti. That's a Barcelona and a Real Madrid player at their two center backs. Lloris, world-class goalkeeper, without a doubt. He's proven that. Like I said, Pavard probably scored the goal of the tournament. France is stacked, and we haven't even talked about Paul Pogba yet, who is arguably, their best player in a lot of people's eyes in terms of like international marketability and just overall kind of superstar status.
Right.
So France going into this game, they sneak out with the 1-0 win from a defensive approach.
And you know what I want to mention on Belgium, what kind of killed them, and they were one of the most talented teams as well. This was a talent versus talent matchup, head-to-head, two titans clashing. But the weakness of Belgium was they did not have any wing backs, left or right. They had a bunch of solid center backs.
Yeah.
You got Vertonghen. You got Vincent Kompany, Anderwild. A bunch of center backs that played, but they played three in the back because they did not have anybody that could play a full left or right back that could bomb up and down the field. They had a couple guys that could play left mid or left or right mid.
Yeah,
but they could not come back and play defense. And the weakness of that was kind of played into France's palm, where they could have wingers who are so fast, like Mbappe, run down the wing, play into the open space that there's a big gaping hole when you play three at the back on the wide wings. And that really ended up being their Achilles heel.
I think what always hits me, and this is the last thing I'll say about this game, is just the brevity and the scope of what the World Cup time frame is a lot of these guys, and you mentioned Vincent Kompany, absolute legend. This is probably his last World Cup. Because in 4 years' time, this guy's going to be past his prime. He's going to be in his mid to late 30s, and he's probably not going to make the squad. And every time I hear his name, it kind of pops in my head. I don't know if you've heard Manchester City fans sing it. They do it to the Addams Family. His name is Company. Dun-dun-dun-dun. I don't know. Just a little tribute. That's my tribute to you, Vincent. I've enjoyed watching you. It's just hard because it's like, man, they just got knocked out. And you're like, oh, that sucks, like most seasons. And this is just something I've noticed in the World Cup. And while we're doing this bonus episode, Joe and I, we're not going to do another World Cup bonus episode for another 4 years, Joe.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's a long time.
Like the distance between World Cup matches, that's why I guess you see the devastation on these players' faces. For a lot of them, it's not like, well, we'll get them next year.
And you got to look at Belgium too, who this has been their golden generation for 3 World Cup cycles.
This was their year.
This was the 3rd cycle that they've had a core of talent and a couple of young players, but their main core talent are all 27 years old, maybe 30.
Yeah.
And so the rest of them, they're about to retire, or the next World Cup cycle, they might not be a part of it. And so they're going to go back to stage 1 to try to regenerate talent, and they may not have the talent coming up like a Kevin De Bruyne or a Vincent Kompany like they have right now. So this is devastating for them.
Yeah, it's just hard. Lukaku will probably be around. He's 25. He'll be 29. De Bruyne will be 31.
He'll still play.
Hazard, he'll be up there, I think 32 or 33.
So they still have one more chance.
I think they might have one more shot. Courtois will be 30. We probably won't see Fellaini. He'll be 34, but we'll definitely see Witsel. He'll only be 33. They might have one more shot at it, but I guess just like for a guy like Kompany, it was hard for me to watch because the guy's already 32 years old. We know that at 36, he's probably not going to be starting for the Belgium national team.
Hey, and let's go on and say that they still have something to play for here. They could go on to the 3rd place match and win 3rd place of the World Cup. That's nothing to frown upon. No. That's something that's pride right
yeah, a lot
there.
Of pride.
And that's an accomplishment. If my very own home country, USA, would ever get 3rd place at a World Cup, I would brag about that for the rest of my life.
You have to. Okay.
So they've still got a great game, and they got to play the team that lost the other game, England.
Yeah. And
Blake, I know you love England.
Well, I went back and forth this tournament, and that's what I was saying about. Let's move to this England-Croatia match because England, everyone says they're going to bring it home. They're bringing it home. That's all you hear. England is bringing it home. They've had a cupcake schedule. They got Croatia in the semifinal, definitely not a World Cup favorite. They roll into this game full of confidence, and bam, early in the game, I think it was like 13 minutes in,
I think
free
it was 5
kick,
minutes
or
in.
it might have been even earlier than that. Trippier, beautiful free kick goal. Hasn't scored for England all World Cup.
But he's had a couple of incredible free kicks during the World Cup.
Goes up 1-0 in the pubs, and England go mad. They go mad, dude. I was watching video from English watch parties. Everyone's got their shirt off, whether you're, in shape and 150 pounds or whether you're 300 pounds. Everyone's got their shirts off.
I kind of fall somewhere right in between
There's beers getting thrown absolutely everywhere. You want to talk about beer showers at Atlanta United games. This is a whole new level of beer showers going on in England. They think they're going to the World Cup final. But you know what? They tried France's approach, and they failed. They started putting people behind the ball. They started time wasting. And Croatia, who has been so resilient this tournament, just chipped away. And you know what? At the end of the day, Croatia gets 2 goals. They get 1 in extra time. Mario Mandzukic, a little bit criticized during the World Cup because, his team made it to the final. How can you criticize a player? But he hasn't scored a lot of goals.
Oh, Mandzukic has been incredible, though. He was criticized at his own club, Juventus.
Yeah, and he goes in there, and they played in 3 straight, Croatia that is, extra time matches to get to this point, to reach the final. That takes so much physically. That takes such a toll on your body. And they break through all of that, and they get to this point, and they were just more clutch.
And if you go look at the game in this extra time, you could see the exhaustion on the player's body, but they did not give up. Luka Modric was just so exhausting. He is one for Real Madrid that just is an endless motor. And it doesn't matter what minute of the game it is, he is still running full speed.
Absolutely.
Well, in this game, he was gassed. You never see this from Modric. And he's out there gassed, running down. They eventually subbed him out when they finally got the goal. But the other part of this is Croatia's got their starting 11, and they do not like to sub. And if you notice in extra time, they made 2, and if I'm mistaken, they may have made 3 full subs in the extra time. Granted, they get 1 bonus sub when they get to extra time, but they still had subs on the bench to bring in. And they finally brought them in after they scored that final goal, which brought them to the lead.
Let's because we're diving deep into rosters because we're late in the World Cup. And let's talk a little bit about this English team before we talk about Croatia to end the episode. England is going to be back. This is still a very young core of English players. We're talking about Dele, incredibly talented central midfielder. Who knows how long he'll stay at Tottenham. I think Harry Kane's got at least 1 more World Cup in him. Trippier really emerged this World Cup. I think Pickford, their goalkeeper, was arguably the player of the tournament. We got Maguire, who's actually currently on Leicester City, that's playing, center back for them. They got John Stones, who's also a very young center back that plays for Manchester City. Danny Rose, another young left back. Like, England is not going anywhere, unlike maybe Belgium. Yeah. But for Croatia, this was their last shot in terms of player age. They are all in their late 20s, in the prime of their career. Luka Modric, and it's been talked about in the media going into talking about Croatia, Luka Modric might be the best player in the world that doesn't get the credit for being the best player in the world because he's in the midfield. A couple different soccer legends have come out and said, well, no one's going to win the Ballon d'Or when they're a midfielder. But Luka Modric is as good as it gets. He's won 3 straight Champions Leagues for Real Madrid in club football.
And been a star for them.
And then you pair him with Rakitic, who has played more games than any player in all of world football this season between Barcelona, his club team, and between international soccer. He has played more games, I just saw this stat, than any player in all of world football, and he's still motoring. This team is stacked with veterans.
Put yourself in Christian Pulisic's mind, who is one of our stars here in USA, but he had an opportunity to choose to go play for Croatia or play for USA. And he is from Hershey, Pennsylvania, but he's got that green card from Croatia because of his parents. He had an opportunity to play for Croatia, and this year, instead of sitting at home watching the World Cup, he could be on the field, and he would be a starter on that Croatia team.
Hey, I'm all for Croatia. Let's get to the preview of the final, Joe.
Oh, but wait, I want to break down real quick. I want to break down that final goal. You mentioned John Stones. Is his first name John?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John Stones has got to be feeling god-awful. That final goal where it was kind of a 50-50 ball in the air, a header, a clear that went awry, went straight up, and then a header, Croatia heads it back into the box. And the only moment of the entire World Cup where John Stones kind of fell asleep on the play, stood flat-footed. The ball falls right behind him, and Mandzukic flicks it into the goal. The only play he takes off the entire World Cup, Croatia scores, and now they're going to the World Cup final instead of England. How do you feel in that moment?
I don't like to put myself in that mindset. It's kind of like missing a penalty in a PK shootout. The guy played his heart out. I thought Stones had a great World Cup. I hope he's not remembered for that goal. But you're right. That's a heartbreaker, and that's hard to come back from. And when you make an error in soccer at the defensive level or at the goalkeeping level, it's so mental, and it's so hard to bounce back from. That's a great point, Joe. So, Joe, I have a little bit of trivia. Let's go ahead and predict the winner here. But how many of Croatia's players, I'm just going to see if you know this off the top of your head, end in itch?
Well, if I got to put it, their back 4 do not end in itch, and neither does their goalie. So that's 5. So that leaves 6 players up front. It's definitely 6 players that end in itch, and then you got to add, I don't know how many on the bench, but I'm going to guess 2. So I'm going to go with 8 total.
Okay, you hit it right on the head, but for the starting 11. The starting 11 today, there were 8 players ending in itch.
Yeah, and then go through their bench. Is there
So
anybody?
the only players not ending in itch were Lovren, Dejan Lovren, Vida, the guy with the top bun,
Yeah.
and then Versali Jago. And everyone else, Rebic, Mandzukic, Perisic, Brozovic, Modric, Rakitic, Strinic, and Subasic, all in an itch. I don't know if that's relevant at all. Joe, who you got in the final?
All right, so early on when we had the round of 16, I predicted Croatia to make it to the final, make it out of this. I did not predict France, but I have constantly said that they are one of the most talented teams. And in World Cup, it's been pretty much a chalk tournament, especially when you get to the latter stages.
Yeah.
So I've got to pick France to win it, although I'm going to be pulling for a team that's never won the World Cup. And it just gives my home heart of USA to eventually be one of those teams to win a World Cup. I'm going to go gung-ho, cheering for Croatia, but I think France will win it all.
What's your score prediction?
It's going to be 3-1 France.
3-1 France. Okay, I'm going with Croatia. This is the this is the second smallest nation to ever make the World Cup final. It's second to Uruguay. And this team is filled with camaraderie, teamwork.
Yes.
They got stars on some big clubs. They are a more experienced team.
They are resilient.
France. They are resilient. They have won 3 straight extra time matches. And they have Yacht Week. And that's all that I'll say about that.
That's
you guys
all that matters.
Google Yacht Week. Croatia is a beautiful country. Let's go, Croatia.
Go, Croatia.
Hey, guys, we have so appreciated
Viva
you
la Croatia.
listening to us and this unfortunately ending World Cup summer. We'll see you guys in 4 years for the next World Cup bonus
Hey,
episode.
but if you guys don't listen, we do a podcast, ATLN's United, and Atlanta United will play right after the World Cup.
Oh, yeah, we still got that going on. But I'm still sad about the World Cup. We'll miss you guys.
USA.
We didn't play.